So many people are confused about what they can and can't include in their best man speech, or more importantly, what they should or shouldn't include in their best man speech. There's so much stuff written on the internet about it. A lot of it's very conflicting, and as I've written many best man speeches for people all over the world, I have a pretty good idea of what you can use and what you shouldn't use. So these are my top 10 tips of things that you should definitely avoid in any best man speech anywhere in the world. Okay, so let's kick it off. This stag weekend, or as it's called in the States, the bachelor party or bachelor weekend. This is pretty much exactly the same thing. A load of guys getting together, having fun times, lots of alcohol and doing things that, maybe they wouldn't like to tell lots of other people. So there's no place for it in the best man speech, purely because you're going to make maybe 6 people laugh and everyone else feel very confused and isolated. You don't want to confuse anyone. You don't want to isolate anyone. And really importantly, you don't want to upset anyone, especially not the bride. So any of that bawdy, slightly controversial, funny ideas and memories that come out of the stag or bachelor should be left exactly there on the weekend. Swearing for me, well, I love a good swear, and who doesn't? And there are very many occasions when it punctuates a sentence perfectly, punctuates a joke perfectly, and adds the power and oomph that you're looking for, but not in a wedding. It's just not the time or place for it. These are family occasions. Okay, there may be some adult weddings where you can make that call, but generally speaking, I would pitch down the middle and don't include swearing. Even if you just upset one person, the bride will be thinking, what did you do that for? You didn't have to do it. You can be as funny as you want to be funny and not have to drop the F-bomb. So don't drop it. Now, that brings me to the bridesmaids. Now, a lot of best men, buoyed up by a sense of bravado at the exalted position they find themselves in and all that alcohol they shouldn't have been drinking, decide that they will reference the bridesmaids in a disparaging way. And there's nothing that's going to make you look more of an idiot quicker than referencing the bridesmaids, who you may or may not know that well, as your next sexual conquest. Everyone's going to think you're a bit of a moron. Everyone's going to be talking about it afterwards. And you don't want that. You just want people coming up to you afterwards saying, that was brilliant, well done, and not thinking, I'm going to give him a bit of a wide berth because he's a bit of a sex case. So don't do it. Fake telegrams. Lots of best men run out of ideas. They think that they haven't got enough content, and so they raid the internet. Now, I get that. Grooms fall into 2 categories. Those that are so sensible, there's nothing you can write about them. And those that are so boring, so those that are so naughty, there's really nothing you can write about them. So very often, having enough ideas and content to put together for best man speech is quite a tricky process. So people go to the internet and they find these scripted gags. Fake telegrams are one of my least favourites. Telegrams are normally sent when it comes to wartime, about 100 years ago, when trenches and casualties were the order of the day. That's how old these things are. If you find a fake telegram from the ping pong strip club in Bangkok funny, it probably says more about you and your sense of humour or lack thereof than it does about the joke itself. So just avoid them. Alcohol is one of the go-to props for so many best men, and I get that, because it's a nerve-wracking thing to do. Stand up and make a room full of people laugh is a really big ask, and understandably, an awful lot of best men are terrified, and so they have a couple of drinks, they think that went quite well, they have a few more, and before they know it, they're delivering a best man speech absolutely plastered, and that never, ever ends well. You're not nearly as funny as you think, you get confused, you miss your place, people tell you to sit down, and it all ends up being a bit of a disaster. Having a couple of drinks in the run-up is fine. Know your limits, have a couple of drinks, drink them slowly. That will relax you maybe, give you a little bit of confidence you're looking for, and there's nothing wrong with that. Just do not overcook it, because it can change your relationship with a groom, and I've seen this happen many times, and not in a good way, so avoid. Sexual innuendo. Sexual innuendo was last funny in the 70s, which by my reckoning is 50 years or so ago. It's not the time or the place to bring in sexual innuendo for 2 reasons. One, it's not funny, and 2, you're going to make people feel uncomfortable. And you don't want to make people feel uncomfortable. You just want people to be laughing and enjoying themselves. You don't want people to be squirming or cringing or think, who is this person? Is he on some kind of police register? So for me, it's a massive no-no. It was funny when Benny Hill was knocking around, but that was 50 years ago. So yeah, again, like so many things on this list, just avoid. Icebreakers. Icebreakers are the same kind of format really as the fake telegrams. They are all that, all those gags and jokes and stuff have been written on the internet specifically for weddings to get people laughing at the beginning. The problem is most of them are 50 years old and most of them weren't that funny when they were written. So again, I would avoid. There's nothing worse than starting the best man speech with a gag and all you get is a groan or a polite laugh or chuckle. You don't want that. You want people to be really laughing. There's always enough to get your teeth stuck into. You just have to think about it. Is it the venue? Is it the bride's new surname? Is it the tie the groom is wearing? Anything at all that you could have some fun with. The problem is most best men don't afford themselves enough time, so they don't have that thinking time. So they think, go to the internet, find some funny there. It is a fruitless exercise. Don't do it. Being the best man. A common mistake for so many best men is to talk about themselves. And this is never a good look. A lot of wedding speakers talk about themselves. I don't care what it was like or when he asked you to be best man. And even worse, I don't want a series of stories where you are the focus. In some cases, the only character in the story. I have so many examples of best men getting in touch with me and sending me stories which only involve them. It's not your wedding. I want to know about the groom and the happy couple. I don't want to know about you. How they met. You've got to bear in mind that in most scenarios, you will be coming last, apart from in Australia. But so the father of the bride will have covered how they met. The groom will have covered how they met. So what you don't want to do is be the third person who's talking about how they met. If there's something funny in there, you can get a one-liner in or a quick reference, then so much the better. That's great. But don't focus too much on it because you don't want to be sat there thinking, that was my line, that was my line, I was going to talk about that, and then you get up and you're on the back foot. So avoid that. Probably the biggest, dodgiest area to avoid in a best man speech is ex-girlfriends. This is an unbelievably special day for the happy couple. It is the biggest day of the bride's life, and she doesn't want anything or doesn't deserve anything to upset her sensibilities, her sense of humour, her special day. And nothing is going to upset her quicker. No matter who you think she is or how tough she thinks she is, them going through the groom's ex-girlfriends. It's not the time or the place. So many best men get this wrong. And I've got examples where they wanted to reference them in date order or go through their quirks, or even worse, they play videos with them featuring in it. Do not do that. Again, it's not your wedding. It's not your right to mess things up. You just want to add to the day. The way I like to look at the best man speech is that it is the greatest wedding gift you could give someone because it will mean the most and it will last the longest. You just have to make sure that everything you're including in it is appropriate, is funny, is moving, is original, is creative, and it's not hacked off the internet and it's not going to upset anyone. So if you want to have a look at more hints and tips and advice, then go to my website, allspeechesgreatandsmall.com, or get in touch and we can have a chat about your best man speech.